The purpose of life is to serve. When you become a giver, you will stumble upon the beautiful truth that the mystery man was trying to teach me all those years ago, that meaning is found in the act of giving. The quickest way to get out of grief, pain, despair, or anything that troubles you is simply to give. It's easy to be lost in your own suffering until you meet someone who is in a worse situation than you are. And believe me, if you sincerely try, you can always find someone worse off than you. There's an old saying, I used to think I was bad off because I had no shoes until I met a man who had no feet. When you're feeling like life is hard and you're getting a raw deal, try thinking about another person and their problems rather than your own. The purpose of life is to serve. This is by no means a new discovery. In fact, it is a theme we can trace back through many of the great religions and humanist traditions. For me, it is in giving that we receive, said St. Francis of Assisi. It's also an insight that is supported by modern psychology. A 2012 study from Stanford University investigating happiness and meaning came to the conclusion that among study participants, 400 Americans aged 18 to 78, meaningfulness went with being a giver rather than a taker. I humbly offer my own experience and perspective on this simple but powerful realization, along with some of the stories, writings, and insights that have most inspired me, in the hope that they may inspire others to embrace a life of giving. Many of us have been brought up to pursue happiness, as our founding fathers decreed. But happiness is a highly subjective and elusive state, one that tends to slip from one's grasp when pursued for its own sake. As Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl, author of the classic book Man's Search for Meaning, wrote, "It is the very pursuit of happiness that thwarts happiness." Frankl, who chose to stay in his native Vienna to care for his parents rather than escape, was sent to a concentration camp where he lost his entire family, including his pregnant wife. He went through more suffering than most of us can imagine, but he came out the other side with an extraordinary perspective on what it means to live a meaningful life. He found meaning in what we can contribute to others or to the world. A man who becomes conscious of the responsibility he bears towards a human being who affectionately waits for him, or to an unfinished work, knows the why for his existence and will be able to bear almost any how. Happiness, Frankl concluded, cannot be pursued, it must ensue. In other words, happiness is a byproduct of living a purposeful and meaningful life. He also wrote, "Being human always points and is directed to something or someone other than oneself. The more one forgets himself by giving himself to a cause, to serve, or another person to love, the more human he is." A meaningful life, as the Stanford study confirms, comes from being a giver.